Hey, why am I back with another video when I only put a video out yesterday and I never normally put a video out on a Wednesday? Well, very simply, I have some big news, and that is that I have discovered that the latest album, Power Up by acdc, has been leaked. Let's go and find out the story. These days, I don't often get a lot of time to browse through the YouTube feed, as for the last couple of years, I've been on the platform's treadmill, producing 3 items of content per week. This week, however, I was served an item that I was really excited about, and that made me sit up and take notice. A new acdc album is out. Wow! Now, who doesn't love a bit of straightforward acadaka rock and roll? It's great that the septuagenarians have stepped up to salvage what was left of the worst year in recent history, 2020, the year of the Rona, lockdowns and job losses, the year which saw the loss of Peter Green and now Eddie. We needed something to pick us up, and acdc have stepped up to the plate to save 2020. And what's more, they've done it in U2 style and made their album open source and free to all, released in full on YouTube. Needless to say, I clicked on the thumbnail before another thought crossed my mind. It's an awesome album. It sounds typically acdc from the opening track Realise to the final Code Red. The album sounds just like you've heard it before, an instant classic in such distinctive acdc style. What's more, it sees the return of not only Brian Johnson on vocals, which is a very welcome release from Axl Rose in my humble opinion, but also Phil Rudd on drums too. Sadly, the lineup is of course missing Malcolm, but Stevie Young is the perfect fit and would no doubt meet the approval of his late uncle as his proxy. I love this album, and while listening I couldn't help but be transported back to my first exposure to the band in 1985, when I was introduced to Let There Be Rock by my neighbour. There is a nod of the head to so many classic tracks from so many of the past hits released by the Aussie rockers. I'll go further and say I think that it's just what the doctor ordered. It might even be their best album yet. It played in the background all morning on repeat as I was working in the studio. And then it hit me. Why would acdc, who are confirmed by my buddy Rick Beato as being major blockers on YouTube, release their full album here? Something was wrong. That's when I went back to check the provenance of the video. It certainly couldn't be anyone but acdc, that was obvious. It was definitely and distinctively them, and I had no doubt that these were new tracks that, as a big acdc fan, I'd never heard before. Even Cinderella back in the 80s couldn't quite get their impression of the band that good, even with Tom Kiefer's vocal similarities to Brian Johnson's gravelly screams. Looking at the releasing YouTube channel more closely, it became alarmingly obvious that this wasn't the official acdc YouTube channel. This was a channel with less than 5,000 subscribers. What's more, the video only had a couple of hundred views, and at least 4 of those must have been mine. This was a leak. Checking on acdc.com, it was confirmed. The release date is not until Friday the 13th of November 2020. I'd heard the whole album at least 3 times, a full 10 days prior to the official release. This was one of my all-time favourite bands being ripped off, potentially losing a huge amount of income and compensation for the weeks of investment in writing and recording this brilliant album. I was no longer happy and joyous at the release. I was angered and disappointed that anyone would do this. Why do people so often not value the creative arts? Why is it simply expected that music, once created, should be shared freely and openly across the internet, without care for the livelihood or effort that the artist put into writing and recording it for release? Suddenly I could see why bands like acdc and their record labels would be so-called blockers on YouTube. Yes, I understand that channels like Rick Beato's are dedicated to promoting and bringing great bands to a new audience, and often a new generation. I also totally agree that it's wrong that publishing companies should steal the entire monetization of a 20-minute video for a 5-second clip of music used under fair use for education. But now I also understood why there's such a lack of trust between YouTube and record companies. How could YouTube let this happen? The video was titled acdc Power Up Full Album. Surely an algorithm that knows not to share my videos when they're not Chinese fake guitar related ones would be able to put two and two together and work out that this was not a legit release. I reported the video to YouTube immediately, but it took them over 2 days to take the video down. In the interim, I also reported direct to the acdc website and direct to their label Sony Music. I'm not even sure who got the video taken down. It could have been the band or the label that actually got it taken down in the end. I've had dealings with reporting things to YouTube before and they're not always quick to respond. So it wouldn't surprise me if lawyers had to be wheeled out. So now it's out there, and while acdc might have tried to save the year and bring some joy to 2020, there are probably thousands of rogue copies of the leaked album doing the circuit online. Thousands of dollars of missed income for the band. Thousands of dollars that the publishers and label will now claw back by demonetizing YouTube educational videos. This is the digital world that we're living in. And so I ask you, my friends, this simple question. Is this right? Why shouldn't artists, even those who've already made millions, get paid for their creations? You wouldn't ask a decorator to paint your house for nothing, or a school teacher to work for free. So why should we ask musicians to give their work away? Why should record labels and publishers invest and distribute for pennies on the dollar of what they used to get in the age of vinyl or cassette album releases? If you ask me, this is the thin end of the wedge, and it explains why we have so few new supergroups coming through. These days, if an established huge name artist can't protect their work, what chance do new upcoming talents have? In the guitar world, we've asked many times in recent years, is the electric guitar dead or dying? Well, maybe not, as there are thousands of players out there releasing new material. But how many of them will reach a large enough audience in the digital age to fill stadiums? How many of them will be invested in to the same degree as our guitar heroes and guitar bands of the past, when there's no longer any money to be made for the record companies? When I was a kid, there were adverts all the time, on albums, in magazines and even on TV, which said piracy is killing music or piracy is killing film. Has piracy won? Do we now accept and expect that we have everything we want for free, downloaded at the click of a mouse? Is this right? Let me know what you think in the comments section. So there it is, and it's really concerning, and I'm really keen to know what you guys think and what should be done about it. It's a terrible situation for acdc, and I'm really keen to read your comments and find out what you think. As always, I hope this has been of interest and useful to you. If it has, don't forget to give me a like and a thumbs up. And as always, it can never hurt to subscribe. I'll be back again for the third time this week on Friday with an unboxing. And also we'll have a live stream on Sunday where we've also got another unboxing and a little bit more of a chat about this situation based on your comments in the comments section down below. I really look forward to seeing you then, but in the meantime, you take good care.